we're here to protect you and the ones that you love. It's a good feeling to know that our efforts aren't going unnoticed.
It actually brought tears to my eyes to know that we have this support.
You're welcome. I must just say you're welcome. It's stressful, but we're not going anywhere.
Welcome to another edition of Bucknell Football Through the Decades. This is Todd Newcomb here at Bucknell, and I'm joined by head coach Dave Cicchini, one of our current players, Branden Sanders, and three great guests today to have a little chat about Bucknell football in the 50s and the 60s here on campus and in Christy Mathewson Memorial Stadium. I want to introduce our guests first, and then I'll turn it over to Coach Cicchini, and he'll run with today's program. Our first guest, who on your screen is identified by the word owner. That is actually Jack Aegis from the class of 1960. Jack was the receiver involved in the second longest scoring pass in school history, an 84-yarder against Lehigh in 1958. He was an honorable mention AP All-American in 1959. Our guest today is Bobby Marks from the class of 1967. Bobby was the team captain in 1966. On teams that won the Lambert Cup and Middle Atlantic Conference championships. He was an all-MAC defensive back, an all-Pennsylvania defensive back, and he's been the president. He was the president of the Bison Club for 15 years, and he's been a longtime member of the Hall of Fame Selection Committee. Bobby was elected to the Bucknell Athletics Hall of Fame in 1997. Our third guest today from the class of 1969 is Sam Gavrillac. Sam was the team captain in 1968. He led the team in passing, rushing, and scoring in both 1967 and 1968. He still ranks 8th on the school's career rushing yardage list with 1,913 yards. He ranks 9th on Bucknell's career 100-yard rushing games chart with 600 rushing yard games to his career. And 51 years after graduation, he still holds the school record for total offense in a game with 397 against Colgate in 1968. He currently ranks 8th on the career list with 4,402 yards of total offense. He was a Middle Atlantic Conference MVP in 1968, All-Pennsylvania quarterback. He was an honorable mention AP All-American in 1968, and he was taken by the Baltimore Colts in the 1969 NFL Draft, and he played with the Colts and the Saints in the NFL. And Sam was elected to Bucknell's Athletics Hall of Fame in 1981. Our player today joining us is the exciting Branden Sanders. He's a rising junior for the Bison, and he does everything on offense. And I'll let Coach take it from here. And, Coach, you might want to elaborate a little bit on Branden and what he does for your program.
Yeah, obviously Branden was one of our big playmakers this past season, and you know, he wasn't able to stay quite as healthy as he would have liked to have been throughout the season. But when he was available, he was a difference maker. He made some huge plays and was honored as an all-conference receiver, despite being injured through almost a third of the league schedule. He was that well respected, you know, being voted on by the fellow Patriot League head coaches, and was very well deserved. We were very excited that he was named all conference, and obviously we're looking for huge things out of him this coming fall. So that being said, I'm going to get our questions started. I know Branden's going to have some opportunities here to ask some questions on his behalf, but I'm going to start off. I think we'll go with Bobby Marks here first. He's going to kick us off here. And the first question I'm going to ask you guys all to answer is, take us back to the beginning and tell us how you wound up to play football at Bucknell. I want to hear your recruiting story. So, Bobby, you got it up first.
I love it. I love it. You know, I was looking at quite a few schools: Cornell, Pitt, West Point, Rutgers, Duke, and Bucknell. My parents were both Bucknellians, and one afternoon around 11:30, Bob Odell came and had lunch with my dad and I and my mom, and that pretty well solidified it, although it really came down to Cornell Bucknell. Tom Harp was there, and Bob Odell was 15 minutes away, so I think my dad helped made, he sent back airplane tickets to Duke, where he went to law school, saying, Bob, you wouldn't like it down there.
There we go. There we go. I like that. Great job on his part.
Yeah.
Sam, how about you?
Well, I was recruited by Bob Odell initially. And Bob Odell and Bill Ravley came to my home in Menneson, Pennsylvania, and recruited me for Bucknell. Of course, for the 4 years before I was there, Andy Dizrinko, who was an all-Pennsylvania guard and a very, very good player at Bucknell, kind of my mentor when I was growing up. Andy was a good friend of the family. And Odell had recruited me. He left to go to Penn. So he came back a week later with Bill Ravley and said, well, forget about everything we said about Bucknell. Now we want you to go to Penn. And I had made up my mind at that time that large D1 schools, just on the strength of my my high school career and my high school's reputation. So I decided on Bucknell, and that's the way it went.
Wow. Wow. All right. All right, Jack, it's your turn. Let's hear your story, how you wound up playing Bucknell football.
Well, I had offers from University of Virginia, Lehigh, Lafayette, and Gettysburg. But when I came to Bucknell, Harry Lawrence, which some of you may not remember, said I was a quarterback in high school. So he said, I've already got 4 quarterbacks on scholarship, but if you make the first 11 on the freshman team, I'll give you some help, which he did the second semester. So I came there as a QP, going to play end, on a promise.
Okay. All right. Yeah, back in the days of freshman football, back when they were not eligible to play with the varsity squad until they were sophomores. And that kind of leads me into the next question that I have for you guys. Obviously, the game of college football has changed and morphed and over the years. I mean, shoot, I played in the early 90s, and it's a much different game. But what are some of the biggest differences that you guys see? And if you were playing today, if you were out there suiting up this season in 2020, how would you prepare different than you did back in your day? And we'll go Sam here first on this one. So I'd love to hear your opinion.
Well, my high school program was predicated on weightlifting. So I started lifting weights when I was 12 years old. So nowadays, weight training is a given, but back in those days, it wasn't a given. So I think the fact that the players today are bigger and stronger and faster, better nutrition, better medical attention, etc. All of those things are different. So players today have a big advantage over what we did. I'll tell you a quick story. I had, when I was a freshman, I was taking gym. Of course, now I guess they don't take physical education. And Rod Oberlin was my phys ed teacher. So Tom Mitchell had just been drafted by the Oakland Raiders, and Oakland brought in about 2,000 pounds of weights and set up a little weight training area in the annex of Davis Gymnasium up on the second floor in an old closet. And Bobby, you may remember that up there. So I said to Rod, I said, instead of me taking volleyball or bowling, why don't you let me lift weights? And he said, no, I can't let you do that because you'll get too muscle bound and you won't be able to play or throw the football. So that's how things have changed since then.
Wow, that's a great story. Well, what about you, Jack? What are your thoughts on how the game's changed?
Like he was talking about the weight room, back then we didn't know how much we could lift because there was only 200 pounds of weight in the room. So we would squat that and press it, and that was about it. And he mentioned Rod Oberlin. I spoke with Rod back in January. He called me and then he died in early February. And he was a great end coach, and I just think about him a lot, especially when I watch pros, because he taught us hand position. And these guys are trying to catch the ball with their hand in front of their face and stuff, where I don't ever remember dropping a catchable ball, and I blame that all on Rod.
I hear you. All right, what about you, Bobby?
Well, I go along with Sam. Speed and strength are very important now, rather than when we were doing it. I went up to that place at the back of Davis Gym, and Coach Hunter said, "Well, you need to lift weights, Bob." I said, "Well, I'm a defensive back, but I'm also a quarterback, and I'd hate to ruin my passing by lifting weights." So I never lifted one the whole time I was there.
Wow. That's pretty crazy. Although, you can talk about, the days of old where some people would say lifting weights was bad for you. Just like, oh, you shouldn't drink water. That's going to give you cramps while you practice. And those sort of things this day and age sound just, so completely different. But it's amazing how far the game has come and training has come. That's for sure. So, all right, well, I'm going to throw it on over to Branden. Branden Sanders is going to ask you guys a question now.
Sure. Yeah, if you guys just don't mind me asking this one thing, what advice would you give to me or any other players that are in our program about, just the Bucknell experience, and also more specifically your, the college football experience, and what do you think that, you learned that we can also take into account today? I'll pose that question first for Mr. Aegis. Sorry.
Oh, just that all my teammates have become friends for life. And when you go through, like in August, you go through 2-a-days in the August sun, that you have to bond to survive. And so you bond and become buddies for life. I talk with a lot of my teammates on the phone.
Sure. Thank you. Move over to Mr. Marks.
I just think be ready for the beginning of this practice. Season. It's just you think you can, but you can't.
Right.
You get the pads on, and so for you, certainly a lot of 20 yards and turn and speed, and get your hands limber. But just enjoy and enjoy the Bucknell experience, which is a lot about studying, time. Know how to handle your time, and just enjoy the experience. As Ben Crenshaw is saying, I have a good feeling about this coming year.
I do as well. Thank you. And then last but not least, Mr. Gavrillac.
Yeah, I would say this, the best way to stay in shape is to never get out of shape. So continue your program all year round, get stronger, get bigger, get faster. Remember that you're only going to be at Bucknell for 4 years. So get the most out of your experience, cherish every day, cherish your friends, because they'll become friends for life. As Bobby knows, and Jack, that we all keep in touch with people that we played with to this day. And it gives one a good feeling to know that you got a brother that stands behind you all the way.
Sure. Thank you guys so much. I'm going to pass it back over to Coach Chick, who will ask just a couple more questions before it's my turn again.
All right. Thanks, Branden. Those are some great answers. Let's switch gears now, and let's go to what was your most memorable experience as part of the Bucknell football program? And Bobby, I'm going to go with you first on this one.
Oh, I get chills. That's the easiest question and the easiest answer for me. It's 1965. We've played, I think, 7 or 8 games, and we have Delaware coming to Christie Matheson Stadium. And my good high school buddy, Ken Bill, defensive back for the Blue Hens. and he's guarding Tom Mitchell. So half of Danville came over to see the game, big game, played a little defense, and then in the fourth quarter, I was given the chance to come in. We were behind, and this was for the Middle Atlantic Conference Championship, hooked up with Donald Deaver Lenhart on a touchdown pass and Thomas G. Mitchell on another touchdown pass, and we won the game. Never forget it.
Wow.
Won the championship. Yep, that's my most
right.
memorable.
Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. So, Sam, how about you?
Well, I've got 3 games that I remember the most. We hadn't beaten the University of Pennsylvania for a long, long time, and at that time, the Ivy League schools played all their non-conference opponents at home, so we couldn't get them up to Bucknell, so we had to go down to Franklin Field. And Bobby, I think you got hurt. Mark
I
Vetter
played
was the quarterback.
defense, you're right, Sam, but I got hurt in the Gettysburg game. So you are the QB against Penn.
Well, I didn't start the game as a quarterback. As you remember, maybe you do. Mark Vetter started as a quarterback, and we were hanging in there the first half. And Coach Huntress put me in just at the end of the first half, and we rallied and scored once or twice. And I started the second half, and we came back and beat Penn. So after that, I was no longer a receiver; I was a quarterback. Then the next year we went back to Penn and we did the same thing. We beat them again. And we beat them pretty handily, I think. We went down there my senior year. We weren't so lucky. We got beat. But the other game I remember is we got beat by Temple my freshman year by 82-28. Okay. I'll just give you a little bit on this. Bobby, you're going to remember this.
No, I don't remember anything about it.
Yes, you do. Coach Huntress said at halftime, when the score was 41-14, he said, if you guys keep this up, you're going to get beat 82-28.
And we did.
And we did. Okay. So they came up to, that was down at in Philadelphia at Temple.
Yeah.
They came up to Bucknell my junior year. We lost, I think it was 13-8. Then we went down there our senior year and we beat Temple in Philadelphia. And it was a very good game. We beat them right at the end of the game, and it was a good vindication for Bucknell football.
Yeah, sounds like it. That's a heck of a turnaround in just a couple of short years.
Dave, I'd like to tune in one thing here with Sam. We beat Gettysburg. I got injured, and we went up to Maine, Orono, Maine. John Heward was their big linebacker. And Huntress, I don't know why, kept me in there. I shouldn't have been even walking, so he keeps me in there. Sam and my favorite play that over the last 40 years I've been trying every damn coach at Bucknell to put it in. Nobody will put it in. Sam, what's the name of that play?
It was roll right and
roll
trap right.
The
That's
best
right.
play in the world. So
well, if it's done properly, it's unstoppable.
It's unstoppable with two receivers out there. It's a run first. Sam and I made hay on that. So we're at Maine, and we're down like, I don't know, 9-3, and we're on the 5-yard line going in, and he calls roll right. I can't even walk. And I go up there, and I know if I get hit, it's over. So I throw a bad pass. I pass first instead of walking in. Sam Gavrillac should have been in that game, and we'd have beaten Maine. Right, Sam?
I can't go that far, Bob. But we had a chance to win. I don't know if you remember. One of our tight ends dropped a pass. It was wide open. Could have walked in and scored. I think we lost 7-6.
Was that what it was? Okay.
Wow.
Okay. So I wanted to mention that.
Yeah. How about you?
It's very, very kind of you to say that.
Well, after losing to Temple, for us to come back and Sam to beat Penn was exciting.
Yeah,
it was.
I'll bet. How about you, Jack? What's your best memory?
Well, Bobby mentioned the Blue Hens. I my between our junior and senior year, we went to Fort Meade for ROTC summer camp, and we're 3 blue hens there. And so every night we would go out, throw the football around, work out, run, get in shape, and then we go to the officers club. But my most memorable play was we're playing against Lehigh, and I made a couple moves. I got behind the halfback and the safety about 10 yards, and Turk, Paul Terry's, got a little excited. He threw a cunny thumb pass, and it came was like a wounded duck. So I had about 10 yards on these 2 guys. So I had to come back, ran right between them, jumped up. I was a little taller, so I jumped up a little higher and caught the ball. And as I looped around them, they ran together and went down, and I went on, and it was an 84-yard touchdown.
Yeah.
So that's a memorable play.
That's a long one. That's a lot of yards. 84. That's not easy to do. That's outstanding. So we'll ask you, Branden Sanders, what's your longest reception so far?
Ooh, I think it would be the one-handed catch that either that or I don't know the exact yards. I know that they were in the 40s, but that or my freshman year against Holy Cross, I had a long catch on a double post. I remember, and the safety had no idea where I was at, and unfortunately there was pressure, and I was standing all the way back there completely by myself, but Logan had to scramble out of the pocket, so that gave the safety some time to recover. And then unfortunately it wasn't a touchdown, but it's up for a field goal, I believe. At least
so it was about 40 yards on that one too?
Yeah, it was I would say give or take like 45.
Yeah. So you put those 2 catches together, you got what Jack got on that one play.
Not quite there yet. So
Yeah. All right, cool. All right, well, how about this? So looking back on your experience, is there anything that you would have done differently? Either at Bucknell in regards with football or academics, just the overall experience. Can you think of something you said to yourself, boy, if I could go back and do it all again, I would not make this mistake? And Jack, we were on you. How about you start us off on this one?
There's not a thing I would have done different. I played 13 years of football. 4 of it was at Bucknell, and every job or every place that I've gone, my degree was in civil engineering, and so that opened a lot of doors for me. And when you just mentioned Bucknell, it's like automatic respect.
Outstanding. That's great. How about you, Sam?
Well, I have to agree with Jack 100%. There's nothing I would change about my Bucknell experience, and especially the education that I got, which was one of the reasons I went, and also to play football. Right. When you do say the name Bucknell, people look, and there's a lot of respect for that name around the country. I actually found my studies in dental school to be not as difficult as the course load I had at Bucknell. So that says a lot about the education that I got.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, Bobby, how about you?
Same. I have nothing written down here, and that's how I feel about my entire life. There may be one thing I would do better, and that is be around for my children in their early years instead of on the golf course. And I've been able to do that now with my grandchildren, so that's the only thing I'm a little upset about, but not a thing.
All right, that's great, outstanding. All right, Branden, you're up. It's your turn to throw out a question.
Sure. So this question kind of goes beyond the football field. I know that all 3 of you are very successful in football, and you took experience at Bucknell and made it into something meaningful. So my question was just, what kind of advice do you have about, finding the right job after Bucknell, and just, being able to just network yourself, and, get your name out there, just since you have, that prestigious, just Bucknell degree that, Mr. Gavrillac, mentioned. So I'll let you start, Mr. Gavrillac, just because were talking about, what the Bucknell degree, means in the
Yeah,
world.
it does. It means a lot out there in the business community. And there are a lot of Bucknell alumni who have jobs and have positions in corporations and companies who you can network with. But I think you'll find that your education at Bucknell, regardless of what your major is, that you will be more than well prepared to be a success in whatever you decide to do. So follow your dream, do what you want to do what satisfies you and makes you happy. Believe me, it will be a world of difference to you and your life because of your education at Bucknell.
Awesome. That's great to hear. We'll go over to Mr. Marks if you don't mind.
Sure. I guess the marksmen are pretty the same. My dad, myself, my son all went to Bucknell, all took political science, and all became lawyers. And that's okay. And my grandson Cole's going to Messiah next year. We've already offered him a position at the law firm. But I think the net that's been set up through Bucknell of late is excellent. We've had a couple people call us for summer internships, and I think, Branden, let your teammates know that these summer internships with networking with Bucknellians works. It works.
Okay, yeah, no, I'll definitely relay that back to the team after we get off the call. And Mr. Aegis, if you don't mind as well.
Well, I only took a few interviews. They had most of my classmates took like dozens of interviews of people that came in to interview. I ended up going with the Bell Telephone of Pennsylvania because they offered me some management positions, and that all worked well for me. And I got like I say, I got a lot of respect just coming from Bucknell.
Sure. No, that's really good to hear. Just knowing that no matter what you choose to be after Bucknell, that just hearing that just employers and people really do care about where you're coming from, and it does make a world of a difference. So, Coach Chick, I'll pass it back to you for last round of questions.
All right, you got it. So this question will be for Jack. Jack, we'll stick with you here. So during your playing days at Bucknell, you went through a coaching change when legendary coach Bob Odell took the reins back in 1958. How did the team navigate that coaching change, and how long was it before you as a player could tell that Coach Odell was going to be this tremendous leader for the Bucknell program?
On day one,
Yeah.
he came in with a new system, and things. I think Harry Lawrence had maybe stayed maybe a year too long. That teammates were downgrading him or mocking him. So Bob Odell was a welcome relief, and also he brought Rod Oberlin with him. Okay. Rod Oberlin was the end coach and the baseball coach, and he like I say, he taught us a lot. And the new system that Bob Odell brought in there and stuck me at Lonesome End. And at that time, there were two Lonesome Ends. There was Carpenter at Army and me at Bucknell. And that opened me up for a lot of, I had all the passing reception records until Sam came along.
I gotcha. Good. All right. Well, how about Bobby Marks? Bobby, what was it like? So you transition and you're playing more defensive back, and you're going up against Sam in practice. I'm assuming he's throwing the football.
No, not true. Nope.
No.
No, the guy it was Mark Vetter was the quarterback.
Okay.
Sam was not the what are they called? What kind of quarterbacks are they when they just come in and run the other system?
Oh, Wildcat quarterbacks.
Yeah, that's what he
Okay.
was. Better, good guy.
Uh-huh.
The defensive instruction came from Bill Yeomans. We had
Uh-huh.
great people back there, and I just got to enjoy going to offense, going to defense, and I passed him. And Billy Lero was the quarterback, so it was fun. A lot of fun.
Yeah. Okay. All right. How about you, Sam? Let's hear about your draft experience, going through it back then, and just how you went through training and working out for clubs. And were you surprised when you were drafted by the Colts?
Well, you have to remember things were much, much different back then. It was much more raw than it is now. I got letters from a lot of the NFL clubs saying they were interested in drafting me. But curiously, I can only remember one scout coming to Bucknell to time me in the 40. And that was a guy whose name was Bucko Kilroy for the Dallas Cowboys. And he watched me run, he watched me pass. And that's the only guy that ever came from any NFL team. It's not like today where it's a big deal where everybody goes and works out.
Sure.
So on I didn't know whether I'd be drafted or not. Carol Huntress told me that he had talked to a bunch of pro teams and said that I would be drafted, but he couldn't give me any idea as to what round it would be. So on draft day, I was sitting at home next to the phone, and the phone rang early, and it was Denver. And it was the Denver Broncos, and he said, the guy on the phone said, "We're thinking about drafting you in the 3rd round." He said, "But we want to draft you as a safety. Did you play defense in college?" That was the question.
Not one play.
That's how wrong it was, you know. I said, "Well, I played on prevent defense, you know, and I played defensive back as safety in high school. But, you know, if you draft me as a defensive back, I'll certainly play defense. You know, I just want a chance to play in the NFL."
Right.
So he said, "Fine." So he hung up.
I got you.
I didn't know what the hell was going on then. So I thought everybody was in one room drafting, okay? And everybody, you know, all the different teams were in one room where they weren't. So I'm thinking, well, he probably told everybody that Gavrillac doesn't want to play defense. So I didn't get a call on the first day of the draft.
I got
So
you.
on the second day of the draft, which was starting at the 8th round, I got a call from the Colts saying that they were going to draft me and would I play? And
Okay.
of course I said yes.
All
And
right.
a big part of that was George Young, you know, because George was a Bucknellian and he had done some work for the Colts in those days, and I'm sure he put a good word in for me.
Sure. Absolutely. And the rest is history.
It is.
All right. Well, good. Well, before we get to our next question, I don't know if we lost Todd. Todd, are you there?
I am here, but I can't see any of you guys. Can you see each other?
Yep.
Okay.
Yeah, there you go. Now we can see
you.
Okay, well, as long as you guys can see each other, I'm just a little concerned that I can't see any of you guys.
Okay. All right. Well, we'll keep things rolling here, and hopefully you'll stay on with us. So let's get a update on all of your guys' personal life. You know, where do you live? What are you doing right now? Your family, grandsons, granddaughters, whatnot. And we ended with Sam. So Sam, we'll start with you.
All right. I still live in the Baltimore area, about maybe 10 miles north of the city of Baltimore, in a small little hamlet called Phoenix, Maryland, of all places. I'm a general dentist. I'm still practicing. I just went back after about 2.5 months of working part-time because of the coronavirus pandemic. This past Monday, we opened up full-time and things have been going pretty well. I've been married for over 40 years. My lovely wife, who you saw earlier. And we have one son, Michael, who's 41. And I'm the proud grandfather of a granddaughter whose name is Anna Sophia. And I still play a lot of golf, as Bobby knows. He's always been a much better golfer than I have been. And I'm looking forward to working a few more years because this past 2.5 months when I wasn't working, I was bored to death.
I hear
So
you.
I'm hoping to still work a little bit longer if I can.
All right, good. All right, Bobby, how about you?
Well, I want to go way back to 1967 after surgery of my knee. It was obliterated in Delaware game down there, and so I got a call from the Colts, and I went to camp. Where's the camp, Sam?
Westminster, Maryland.
Westminster, Maryland. So I went to camp for 3 days, and they timed me in the 40. In any event, they put me together with Alvin Heyman. He was my partner. And Alvin ran backwards faster than I did forwards. So I came home to Danville and was playing golf with my best friend, Jackie Curry, who had all the past receiving records at Penn State, who just died 3 years ago of pancreatic cancer. So that was tough. Played golf. I was told that there was a lady here babysitting her nephews and nieces, and you ought to give her a call. So I gave her a call to go out to a golf tournament and a dinner dance. She wasn't going to go, but I said, well, why don't we go to the movies ahead of time? So we went to the movies, and then that week I saw her before she went into the airlines, and I asked her to marry me 3 times. She said no. But then she said yes about 9 months later, and we've been married 53 years. We have 3 children who all went to Bucknell, and we have 9 grandchildren, and they all live in Danville, and I've been practicing law for 49 years. Pretty soon I'll get it right, and like Sam, I don't want to retire.
I hear you. All right, Jack, how about you?
Well, when Bobby's talking about Danville, it reminds me when I lived in Danville, worked in Bloomsburg, and we played a lot of golf at Frosty Valley. My house, I bought a house next to the 4th green on Frosty Valley, and so I played 13 years of football, 6 in high school, 4 at Bucknell, 2 at Fort Belvoir, where I made All Army, and then 1 in the Atlantic Coast Football League for the Harrisburg Capitals, because I was living in Harrisburg at that time. But I live just a couple miles from Redlands Golf Club here. I've been a member there for many years. But I've got a grandson who just finished playing at Princeton, and he made the all Princeton team this year, all-time Princeton team.
Wow.
So,
that's great. All right. Well, I appreciate you guys getting us caught up in what you've been doing here over the years. Let's go back over to Branden Sanders. He's got one more question for you guys.
Yep. I have one more. We're going to transition back to the football field one more time. Start with Mr. Marks. Who was your favorite teammate? Who did you admire the most? Who was the most influential to you? And can I have a reason why as well?
Oh, that's a tough question. The guys that come to mind are all the teammates. Certainly the co-captain, Mike Vincent, he and I played the Big 33 together, came to Bucknell together, and still see he and Shirley. Then you got some great running backs like Bruce Smith, and we got some defensive backs, Tommy Crum, and one guy that's no longer with us was tough football player from, what's that place out there? Where'd Ludwig come from?
He was Moon Township.
Yeah.
Wait a minute, I'll think of it.
Pittsburgh area.
Montour.
Yep.
Montour.
Montour
This
High
guy
School.
was from Montour. His name was Tommy Havrin.
Yep.
What a tough, sort of like the two rushing linebackers you have right now, Dave. What a hitter. So those guys were special, and I loved all the coaches, even Coach Huntress.
Don't make me laugh, Bob.
No, I did.
All right, well, we can move on to Mr. Aegis. If you have anybody in particular or even a group of people that you wanted to recognize.
Yeah, on when we played both ways. So on defense, I was the right defensive end, and on my left side was Bob Patswell from Baltimore. And we usually stuffed everything that came our way in the first half, so we usually had it pretty easy in the second half. And one of my other teammates was our center and linebacker, John Bergfeld. And I went to John Bergfeld in the Cleveland Clinic to have surgery on my knee, and it's been okay ever since.
Yeah, it seems like you did a pretty good job for you on and off the field. What about, last but not least, Mr. Gavrillac to finish us off?
Well, I have the utmost respect for all of my teammates that I played with. Football is a team game. It's not an individual game, and I wouldn't have been able to do all the things that I did without my teammates. So I have the utmost respect for all of them, because we went through a lot together in 4 years. But the one guy that, and Bobby knows this guy well, the one guy that I admired the most was my college roommate, Frank Arenowitz. And Frank he probably got the most out of his ability of anybody that I've seen on a football field. And he was one of the hardest workers, was always in shape. We had great competition between he and I for the 4 years I was there. And I'm proud to say that I'm still one of his best friends after all these years. And we still talk to one another and see one another, despite the fact he lives out there in Los Angeles, California.
That's awesome. And thanks so much for, taking the time to answer my questions. I really learned a lot today, so I appreciate every single one of you guys. Thank you.
You're welcome. Good luck to you this year.
Thank you.
All right. I will finish things off here with one final question to you guys. We'll start with Jack. Again, don't know how much you've been paying attention to Bucknell football over the years, but just give us your thoughts, if you have any, about how the program has come along and grown over the years, where we're at now. And lastly, any words of advice for a head coach going into his second season here in Lewisburg. So Jack, you lead us off.
Well, I've followed the team ever since 1956. And I have a lot of respect for it. And the coaches, I have a lot of respect for Bob Odell, Rod Oberlin, and the subsequent coaches, including yourself. And I really can't say, the program has come along, and I really can't add much to it.
All right. Thank you very much. Sam, how about you?
Well, I've got two things, Dave. When I was drafted in '69, Don Shula was the head coach at Baltimore. And one of the first things he said at our first meeting was, we are going to choose people to play on this team who make the fewest mistakes. He said, the NFL is hard enough. Everybody's going to make physical mistakes. He said, but if you make fewer mistakes than the guy next to you and your ability is equal, I'm going to pick you, because it's difficult to win in this league and you can't beat yourself. So that's number one. And number two, you know your players better than anybody, and all of them have unique talents. Find out what those talents are and exploit them to their fullest, and you'll get the most out of your players.
Yeah, that's great. Coach Shula, great man, great coach, a legend. Those are great.
And, I would go down to Miami every year and play in a golf tournament with Earl Morrill. And even though Shula was only coaching me 1 year, he remembered who I was. He'd walk up to me and say hello. He was a great man and a great coach.
Yeah,
Nice guy.
yeah, that's great. Outstanding. How about you, Bobby? You got the last word here. Let's bring it on home.
Well, as you know, Coach, you and I do communicate. And,
We do.
I think you need to continue what you're doing. I like the wide open aspects of the offense. The defense is tough as nails and will be this year. I think having a mobile quarterback is always good to have. Sam and I would agree with that. And waggle and roll. Those are some good. And you always got your screens and draws, but I'd love to see you put in roll. Wouldn't you say?
Right. Roll right.
Roll right.
Absolutely. I hear you. I look forward to getting all your weekly suggestions and opinions. It's outstanding. Keep them coming. All right, Bobby?
Will do.
All right. Sounds good. We'll throw it back over to Todd Newcomb to finish things up here.
Thanks, Coach. And
Good luck, Dave.
thanks, guys, for taking the time out tonight to be on the call. I know we had some technical difficulties along the way, but it was great to be able to hear all the great comments you have and all the history you bring to the Bucknell football program. I know each of you are really supportive of the program in so many ways, and we thank you for that, obviously. And Branden, want to thank you for being on tonight and wish you well with the rest of your training, and hopefully get you back on campus with the rest of your teammates sooner rather than later, as we all look forward to the fall and hopefully that opener at West Point on that Friday night. So again, thanks, guys, for being on the call. And for those of you that were home watching, thank you for tuning in. And everybody, be out there, be safe, and go Bison.